Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to say the timer hasn't started yet, so this bit doesn't count. I feel rather nervous at the moment because I've been billed as explaining what is going on in Orkney, and I'm going to try and gallop through this as quickly as I can. The slides will be available at a later date if you want them, if you want to know more detail, and I'll be around afterwards. But principally, Orkney's been doing something that's really quite special, I believe, and I really want to bring you some information which we think of as energy from the edge, but given the conversation we've got on today, I realise actually we're more in the middle than the edge, if missing from the map. Anyway, however, why are we doing this? Why are we actually doing this in Orkney? Well, Orkney's been doing, or why am I speaking about this from Orkney? Orkney's been doing some really remarkable things for a number of years. In fact, we have generated more electricity than we've needed every year since 2013. We've got more wave and tidal devices in the water than anywhere else in the world. And I'll talk more about that because that's the company I come from, runs the test centre. Micro-renewables are taken up, so now 1 in 10 of the households in Orkney are actually making their own power, and we've also got the highest uptake of EVs in Scotland. And we're having to do some work, and Enrica's going to talk more about this, about working on piloting using green hydrogen to actually start to power the ferries. And that is giving us waste heat, so we're picking up the heat aspect that we talked about, I'm pleased to say. But we also have the highest levels of fuel poverty in Scotland, which we're rather ashamed of. Orkney's been doing this for a number of years. We're not just new to this game because we've had a history of using the resources be in the form of wind. We had the first grid-connected aero generator, as they were called in those days, in the 50s. We've the Flotter oil terminal, 10% of UK oils come through there. And we had the world's largest wind turbine in 1984 until we blew it up in 1997. We've been trying to make this work for some time. And most recently, we've realised we do have the highest per capita emissions of CO2, and a renewable energy forum was formed back in '98, which really started to work across the community, started to get people in all walks of life to get to talk together to try and find ways to deal with some of the solutions. And in part, that group embraced the setting up of the European Marine Energy Centre, the organisation I now run, back in 2000, and we've really pushed on with wind development. We've done an audit. Orkney Renewable Energy Forum did an audit. You can see this in more detail in the slides, but basically the middle section shows the fuels that we use, and the top is electricity, and then I can barely read that, kerosene, gas oil, diesel, down to heavy fuel oil. And we've been working assiduously because we've now got that one done entirely from renewables. We're working on the next two. We're trying to sort out about the ferries. I'll talk about that if I get time. And then finally, we're looking to do something with agriculture at some stage. We can't do anything with agriculture unless somebody's got a use or a electric or a hydrogen tractor. Please see me afterwards. I'd like to know about it. But on an island, we do have the point I think Andy made earlier, which is actually we can monitor things quite closely because we have a boundary. And this is a live feed from Scottish and Southern Energy, which is showing the amount of electricity that is being generated from renewables. The solid green bar, the darker or the lighter green bar, is what's being generated at that point, and the dark blue is what was being used on Orkney. So at that point, we're a net exporter. The forum logs this continuously, and the blue zigzag line in the middle is the energy demand in Orkney, and the red zigzag line is the energy that's being generated in Orkney. And over time, we can show that we have actually been successfully generating more than we've needed. But it's not just on this big scale. This is the macro scale. This is the megawatt-ish mark size machines and upwards. We've also had a big uptake by the local population. And so there's a big uptake of microgen in Orkney. Something like 740 domestic wind turbines now exist in a population of 22,000 people. That's mine, by the way. And we've got more turbines than any other county in the UK. We've got a ninth of all the UK's domestic wind turbines up here, up there, should I say? That way. And we reckon the income to the Orkney economy is around about £4 million a year. That is reducing money that's lost from the islands. By using our own power, we're not paying somebody else for the power and them taking the money off the island. So there's a recirculation of capital within the island, which we think is most efficient. But it is squeezing off some more efficient wind because we are generating power, which means there isn't as much space for the big wind people to generate. And there's a conundrum. And therefore, OREF runs a database looking at what is happening in terms of the reliability of these machines and effectively trying to understand, get good science behind, do these things work What should we do? Should we do more of it? Should we stop doing this and go and do something else? So we're science-based. We've also done an awful lot with electric vehicles. I'm going to skip over this one because of time, but the bottom line is we've got more charging points than petrol stations now. Yes. And we've got the highest uptake of EVs in Scotland, as I said. But we really see this whole energy picture as something of a jigsaw. There are all these different parts, be it for household heating, fuel poverty, what's going on in public buildings, local generation. And the point is that we have some of these pieces of the jigsaw we've put together. We have some of the pieces, but we don't know where to put them. And we've got some pieces that we haven't found yet. And that's the piece we're trying to work our way systematically through, try and work our way through to try and find the way to get to a properly sustainable energy system that works for everybody. Now, from a marine point of view, I'm probably not going to get to talk about ferries, but we'll see how we go. From a marine point of view, we're working on wave and tidal energy. That's what my company does. And EMEC is the world's first test centre for wave and tidal energy machines, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. But our facilities principally comprise cables that run out into the sea, onto which developers then bring their machines and plug them in. I have two main sites. That is showing the tidal site in the Fall of Warness. There's a similar site pointing out to the west of Orkney where it's into big waves. When I say big waves, I mean we get waves that are 19 metres high on occasions. This ceiling's about 11. So, you know, we do get big lumps of water turning up. Today, in Orkney, there are 6 marine energy devices in the water, ranging from a wave machine, top left-hand corner. The other ones are all tied at various scales. And the point is we were set up in order to bring a new industry about, to try and be the catalyst that allows an industry to be created. And we've been pretty successful in doing that, we think. And this photograph is demonstration of activity. This was a photograph taken on Hatston Pier. There were photographs of it from Stuart in his presentation early. And on this particular day, there are 4 tidal turbines being worked on. All those are being worked on by people who are actually doing real jobs, being employed, making a living out of a new industry. Now, this is the start of this. It is absolutely the start of it. It's embryonic. But the point is, it shows it can be done. And we are driving this on. One of the machines that is there, this one at the top, is for a company called Scotrenewables. A couple of weeks ago, that machine, it's a 2 megawatt machine, was in the water, and it produced 7% of Orkney's electricity over a week. Over a week. It's not just touched it once and sagged away. They actually sustained energy generation. We think that's quite remarkable. And over time, we've seen a build-up of activity going on over the site. Each of the vertical lines is a year. Each of the horizontal lines is a technology. And we've seen these technologies come from all over the world, as you can see from the flags in the corners. And we've seen people bring these machines and systematically improve until we got to about 2014, when there was a problem with one of the developers, and they had some financial problems, basically ran out of money, went bust, and it took the skids out from under a number of companies. But at the end of the day, we have seen 30 different devices from 19 developers from 10 countries, all coming to Orkney, doing useful work, and actually, frankly, putting money into the economy. And over time, you've seen, getting towards the bottom of the graph, a build-up of jobs that have happened. So we're really keen to make sure that this continues, but unfortunately we have a problem because although there are benefits from all the jobs that are created, the supply chain development and the infrastructure, because we have a very little grid, it is all at risk. And that's what we've been tackling. And just in the last minute and 20 seconds, I'm going to talk very quickly about what we've been doing because it's led us towards hydrogen. It was triggered very much by Ernest Rutherford's comment, which is on the wall of the Nobel Institute in Stockholm. He says he was talking about the parlous state of British science back then. Glad things have changed. About we haven't got any money, so we have to think. And in our case, we've said it's not about money, it's about the grid. We haven't got any grid, so we've got to think about alternatives. And we started thinking about, is there a way in which we could try and get more energy out of these islands without putting a bigger cable? We want to put a bigger cable, but a bigger cable is always 5 and now 7 years away. So we have to do something else. So it took us to a point thinking, is there something else we can do? And tidal energy comes in a very cyclic form. The green and the red together make a sort of the output curve that you get from a turbine. And we have a limit to how much energy we can get out, and that's the red. So basically we thought, well, can we actually skim off the tops of the generation we've got and then electrolyse water and then generate electricity in the gaps between the tides. We thought that would be our first choice, and that would then give us a standard result of flat output. We did some work, and a study showed that, yes, you could do that. You could look at things like turning it into electricity. You can do a number of things, but actually, at the end of the day, the big opportunity we've got is marine transport, because the value of hydrogen turned into electricity is down there, and the value of hydrogen turned into fuel to move things is up there. It's about 20 times more valuable. So at the end of the day, what we decided was that, yes, we could try and find a better way to use the grid, because that ferry uses 16 megawatt hours of diesel a day. So we thought, if the grid's the problem, stop thinking about it for the solution, find a different way of tackling it, and it made us realise that actually we should stop looking here and start looking here. There's a project we've got going called Surf and Turf, which I'm now not going to talk about because we've run out of time, but Enrique is going to pick up on some other aspects, because the first hydrogen project we've created, which is working on putting hydrogen into ferries, is now leading to a bigger program that Enrique, I think, is going to pick up on. Thank you.